Hi everyone! In this video, we're going to learn how to work with themes in Flutter and how to combine them with clean architecture. For state management, we'll be using Bloc. Let's start with the main page, where we'll have the theme toggle switch. It will be a standard scaffold. Inside it, we'll add an app bar with some text. Next, we'll add an icon button that will allow us to toggle the theme. For now, it won't do anything. In the body, we'll place a regular elevated button as an example, which also won't do anything just yet. Below it, we'll add some text to display the currently selected theme. For now, we'll hard-code it as Light Theme. We'll also add a floating action button, for example, with an add icon. Now, let's install the dependencies in pubspec.yaml. We'll be using Flutter Bloc, GetIt, and SharedPreferences. Next, let's start implementing the logic using Clean Architecture and Bloc. We begin by creating a core folder. Inside it, we'll create a theme folder, and in it, a file called AppColors. Here we'll declare color variables. We'll start with the primary color, which will be the main color used across most of our buttons and widgets. We'll declare two versions, one for the light theme and one for the dark theme. Then we'll define surface colors. This will be the background color, used for example in Scaffold. Again, we create two versions, white for light theme and a dark color for dark theme. Next, we define on surface colors. This color will mostly be used for text and icons. It should contrast with the background color, so we'll use dark colors for the light theme and light colors for the dark theme. Then, we define the secondary colors. These will be used for additional buttons, icons, or status indicators. Again, we provide two versions. Now we create a file called AppTheme.dart. Here we'll define a class with a static method that returns the theme. It will return a theme data and accept a Boolean parameter to determine whether to return the light or dark theme. We return a theme data instance. First, we set useMaterial3 to false. Since we're only working with colors in this video, we'll use the color scheme parameter. It takes a color scheme object which has several required parameters. We start with brightness, either light or dark depending on the Boolean flag. Next is the primary color. We use the correct one based on the theme using our AppColors. Then, on primary color. This should be from the on-surface colors. We do the same for secondary and on secondary. For error, we can simply use red. And for on error, we'll use white since it contrasts well with red. Lastly, surface and on surface, which we also pull from AppColors based on the theme. Done. Now, let's create a features folder. Inside it, we'll create a home folder where we move our home page. Then, we create a folder for theme. As we learned in the Clean Architecture lesson, we have three layers: data, domain, and presentation. We'll start with the domain layer. Inside it, we create an entity folder and a file called themeentity.dart. Here, we define an enum with two values. Then, we declare a class that holds one field, the enum type. Next, we create a repository folder and a theme repository.dart file. Here, we define an abstract class with two async methods. The first is to get the current theme and returns a theme entity. The second is to save the theme, taking a theme entity as a parameter. As we remember from clean architecture, this class is only for declaring methods. It doesn't contain any implementation. Next, we create a use cases folder. It will have two classes, which we'll use in our block to perform actions. Let's start with the use case for getting the theme. This will be a regular class where we declare our repository and define a method named call. In Dart, if a class has a call method, we can call it without using the method name directly. Inside it, we simply call the repository method. You might ask, why use a use case layer instead of calling the repository directly in Bloc? Well, using use cases helps separate business logic from data access logic. This makes the code more flexible and testable. If we call the repository directly, components become tightly coupled, making modification and testing harder. The use case layer encapsulates business logic, making code easier to maintain and understand in the long term. We do the same for the second use case, for saving the theme. This time, the call method takes one parameter. Now, let's move to the data layer. We create a data folder, and inside it, a data source folder. In there, we create a file called theme_localDataSource.dart. It will handle saving and retrieving theme info locally. Here, we'll use a SharedPreferences instance to work with local storage. Let's start with the save method. It takes a theme entity parameter. Depending on whether the theme is dark, we save the appropriate string using SharedPreferences. Then, we write the get method. It uses the reverse logic. We fetch the saved string and check if it's dark. If so, we return a theme entity with the dark type. In all other cases, we return the light theme. Note that the light theme becomes the default, since this code runs even if there's no saved value, e.g. on first launch. Now, we create a repository folder inside data. This repository is the actual implementation of the abstract one we declared in the domain layer. So, we create the appropriate class and file. Here, we define a class that implements the domain repository. It has a field for the local data source and simply calls the methods on it. Now, we can move on to creating the block. Create a folder named Presentation. Inside, create a folder named Block, and in it, create a file for events. We start with an abstract class and then create two event classes that extend it, one for getting the theme and one for toggling the theme. After creating the events, we move on to the state. We'll use a single class, not an abstract one. It will have a copy, with method to help us manage state updates. First, we declare an enum for statuses: initial, loading, success, and error. Then we define our state class with a field for the status enum. We also add a string ? field for error messages, nullable, and a theme entity ? field for the current theme, also nullable. The constructor is private, named with an underscore. We also define a factory constructor for the initial state, which returns the private constructor with an initial status. Now we define the copy with method, which takes named nullable parameters for each field and returns a new state with the updated values, or the existing ones if the new ones are null. Once the state is done, we create our Bloc class. It extends Bloc and uses the appropriate generics. We declare two fields for our use cases. We also call the superclass constructor with the initial state. In the constructor body, we handle events using the on method. Let's start with the event to get the theme. We'll pass a method to handle it, which we now need to implement. This method will return a future since it performs async operations. We start by setting the status to loading using emit and copyWith. Inside a try-catch, we call the use case and emit the result via copyWith. If there's an exception, we set the status to error and include the error message. We do the same for the toggle theme event. Here, we first check if a theme already exists in the current state. Then, we define a variable for the new theme type, the opposite of the current one. We create a new theme entity with the new type. Then, inside a try-catch, we call the use case and emit the new state. After finishing the block, we create a file for dependency injection. We create the appropriate folder and file inside core. We initialize an instance of GetIt. Then we define a method where we register everything from top to bottom. There are more detailed lessons on my channel about this, so we won't go too deep here. Now we need to modify main.dart. We start by calling the dependency setup method. Then we run the app. However, we need to wrap the app in a block provider to make our block available throughout. We get its instance from GetIt and immediately add the event to load the current theme. Next, we wrap the app in a block builder so that theme changes are reflected throughout the app. We pass the theme parameter by calling the method from AppTheme, passing a Boolean depending on our state's theme. Then, we pass in the main page. Inside that page, we also wrap the scaffold in a block builder. Now, we can update icons based on the current theme and add an event trigger when the icon is tapped to toggle the theme. We've already covered how to use Bloc, so we won't focus too much on that here. Let's run the app and see what we've got. As you can see, we can switch themes and the changes are applied across the whole app. The app bar color updates, and so on. And if we restart the app, the selected theme is preserved. That's it. If you liked the video, don't forget to like and subscribe. Also, leave a comment with what topic you'd like to see next. See you next time.